good midnight to you.
Hello and welcome, my fellow creatures of the dark, to the Midnight Spooky Show, and a happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Let's talk about one of my favorite films featuring a fellow corpse, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, I know it's already March, but bear with me. Nightmare is amazing. From its charming characters to its amazing visuals, I think its praises have been sung to death at this point. It's one of those movies that just never really needed a sequel due to how perfect it was. But what if I told you there was a sequel idea floating around that I have yet to really hear anybody talk about? And no, I don't mean that crappy PS2 game or the Zero manga series, or even that stuff with Kingdom Hearts. No, I mean a sequel I've heard name dropped too many times to just ignore. This is what I could find about The Unlucky Clover. If you look up Nightmare trivia, you will usually see The Unlucky Clover mentioned as a sequel that was named by Burton himself. I've seen it referenced in Channel Frederator's 107 Facts About Nightmare Before Christmas among the many, many others that drop this fact about Nightmare. My guess is that a lot of these trivia sections sort of just reference each other without clear indication of where the name originated. What is the Unlucky Clover? Where did the name actually come from? I was more interested in where people first heard or read the name Clover, rather than if it's a real consideration for a sequel. And if there is a shred of pre-production material out there somewhere, I would really like to see it. I did my absolute best to try and figure out the origin of the name and what became of this so-called project. It's hard to say how fans would react to the continuation of Nightmare. I'm not sure I would even want one myself, and it looks like Burton wasn't a big fan of the idea either. The only info I could find on creator Tim Burton's answer as to if there would ever be a sequel was during an interview back in 2006, conducted by MTV, where Burton states,
"I was always very protective of Nightmare, not to do sequels or things of that kind. You know, Jack Visits Thanksgiving World or other kinds of things."
That answers the question about Burton's feelings on a part 2, but not where the name Unlucky Clover came from. For one reason or another, I could not find a date to a lot of the sites that mentioned Clover. I was hoping I could at least track down the earliest mention of it. Some websites talk about how a sequel would have been CG. The website Screenplay states,
Disney had an idea in 2001 for a sequel called The Unlucky Clover, which would have been a computer animated film.
Unfortunately, this, like all the websites that mention Clover, doesn't seem to be sourced. I've read almost any and every article that mentions another Nightmare story, and some make some pretty radical claims about a possible part 2, like this one quote from moviehole.com.
Just talk at Disney to do something with Nightmare Before Christmas. Probably a sequel but live action.
This quote, and its source, are apparently just from some informant who knew insider info and nothing else to back it up. I figure I would state it's not proven now before people try to bring it up. And honestly, a live-action sequel sounds pretty, not good. On a brighter note, I did run across a really interesting interview that I've yet to see referenced on any other website talking about Nightmare or its supposed sequels. The Hollywood Reporter interviewed Nightmare director Henry Selick. You might know Selick from his other works that include James and the Giant Peach and Coraline. Selick went on to state to The Hollywood Reporter,
"Was approached several times as a conduit to Tim, but oftentimes I was told, well, you know, it can't be stop motion. It would have to be CG now because that's what everyone wants. And I said, well, I'm not even going to go to Tim, because I know neither of us would do that. Why would you change the technology to keep up with the times? The thing about stop motion is it's so old-fashioned it can't age because it's already old. I think a good stop motion has a very, very long shelf life."
So, approaches have been made, meaning a sequel isn't impossible, but rather than Selick and Burton compromising on how the movie would be made, it seems Selick would want the movie done in a very specific way, the old way, the way that made Nightmare shine in the first place. Another interesting quote comes from Chris Sarandon, the voice of Jack. He spoke to comicbook.com about a sequel saying,
"I'd crawl on my hands and knees, from the East Coast to the West Coast, in the spring or the fall, to do it again, of course I would. I love that character and I love that I'm part of the legacy of that character as well."
It's awesome to know that with the right script and budget for stop motion, that at least both Selick and Sarandon would return. So hopes for a sequel are not entirely sunk. Although lately, I feel like Hollywood should just leave some of these older properties alone and just make some new ones. Oh, well, just as I'm writing this, it's been confirmed by io9.gizmodo.com that there will be a continuation young adult novel coming out July 2022, written by Shay Earnshaw. James Whitbrook states,
The novel sees a happily married Sally and Jack get their lives momentarily turned upside down when Sally accidentally lets loose a mysterious villain in Halloween Town. With Jack and the entire holiday world itself in peril, Sally goes on a quest to the other holiday worlds, including one previously unexplored, as the Pumpkin Queen, uncovering secrets about how to save the world and wrestle with new discoveries about her past life.
Sadly, that's where my search for the Unlucky Clover ends, and yeah, after all that, I couldn't really find anything except for the name. I hope in the future someone can at least track down where the name came from, and if it's really from somebody who worked on the original film. The closest thing I could find to the Unlucky Clover was his old College Humor video about Jack discovering St. Patrick's Day town.
What's this? This day! I get its point at last. To praise the contents of this glass.
Well, I'm going back to my catacomb now to drink on this St. Patrick's Day, possibly longer. I can't wait to see you come back to the Midnight Spooky Show. See you later.